The revolution of the human spirit is a fledgling and worldwide movement whose time has come. It is only due to COVID-19, quite unfortunately, that the American people and the world en masse have become aware of our profound problems. We see the so-called writing on the wall, and more importantly, we see that global warming has reached a tipping point. So what will exactly happen? What has the American media and the general media not told us? It is that the four engines of global warming are the American, Chinese, Western European, and Indian economies, and that they have been exponentially increasing their CO2 emissions for the past 30 years. For us to have any hope of escaping or even mitigating global warming, these important economies would have to decrease their carbon dioxide emissions exponentially during the next 20 to 30 years. This is the major criterion that we need to examine when analyzing global warming, and this is the most important numerical figure from which we need to add or subtract from in order to figure out the harsh reality of our worldwide situation. The general media has, in fact, not been honest, and they have led us down a dangerous path of strategic ignorance and manufactured consent. They have been constantly implying that global warming and its effects are still to be determined, and that there is hope for humanity. These are nothing but red herrings and lies, and I challenge any political or business leader to show the people, through mathematical equations, how we will escape global warming and other unmitigated crises. If we were dealing with facts on the ground and undeniable statistics, the general public would soon realize that we need to be on a war footing in regards to climate change and our other crises. But tragically, we aren't. In addition to this, our political, economic, and social institutions are irrevocably broken, as the U.S. presidency, Congress, and the Supreme Court have been greatly delegitimized during the past 40 years. You don't have to be very perspicacious to see that our political and economic paradigms are severely broken along with many of our concomitant ideologies and memes. If we don't re-examine as a society these paradigms and make them functional, sustainable, and adaptable again, we will inevitably allow our problems to grow exponentially, like a multi-hydra beast, and we will surely create various dystopian governments that have authoritarian power over us, and Mother Earth will be thoroughly destroyed in the process as we fail to adapt. It is within this general common sense and new framework in which we ought to have our public debates, but we don't. So what can we as a people around the world do? In the 21st century, we can come together and reframe the 21st century in a logical, rational, and compassionate picture of who we are as a human race, and what we need to specifically do instead of being caught in various false dichotomies and nonsensical political dialogues. For the past 38 years, ever since Dr. James Hansen, a NASA scientist, and later on, Carl Sagan warned Congress about global warming, our politicians and so-called business leaders have done nothing except to remain stuck in outdated idiosyncratic political ideologies and paradigms that are seriously outdated. Like Nero, they have fiddled as the new Rome is burning and is a large conflagration. This video ponders the question: if we were drastically late and become aware as a general public about global warming and our other crises, what other benchmarks in the 21st century are we not preparing for now? In this video, we will briefly talk about the 7 benchmarks of the 21st century that we will face, and additionally, how we need to have a revolution of the human spirit and begin to consciously expand human consciousness on the individual and collective levels, which is now scientifically possible, and the possibility of employing the 100th monkey effect. In short, the people must lead and our so-called leaders need to follow. The first benchmark is that due to COVID-19 and millions of deaths, literally, people in general know that global warming, drug-resistant diseases, vast ecosystem destruction, an oil and water shortage, various new weapons of mass destruction, overpopulation, and greater inequities in wealth will come bearing down. By 2050, we will have reached the 500 parts per million carbon dioxide emission level, which is the tipping point that will lead us into the 6th extinction and the Anthropocene age. For how long? This will last for 10,000 years to 400,000 years, and if we look back at the other 5 extinction periods, the range of species lost was anywhere from 96% to 75%. No government official or scientist has come up with a viable solution towards this massive ecosystem collapse. The second benchmark is that we should be on a war footing. We should be creating products and services from cradle to cradle, implementing a curricula to solve not only our crisis, but to split the atom of human potential for today's youth, and perhaps even seizing the oil companies under the Defense Production Act (DPA) to reduce the price of oil and inflation, and to use all the profits for geoengineering, which we presently don't have. That might sound very radical and unacceptable to a portion of the population, but I consider our own and the world's destruction to somehow be a bit more radical and dire. Naturally, governments and corporations will strongly refuse to do this, and worse yet, they will only admit that they have collectively brought us to this dire Armageddon-like place in a distant future. The third benchmark is that we will engage in a re-evaluation of ourselves as a human species. In essence, during the past 50 years, we have followed the good and the so-called bottom line in business and government. And where has it led us? It has led us to the destruction of the world, a much higher chance of World War III, an implosion of 50 to 40 nation-states in the next 30 years, and the oppression of easily 3 to 4 billion people who barely have enough for survival. There will be a slow emergence of a new ethics, as we transition from an immature and non-philosophical society to a philosophical civilization, and we will come to the conclusion that the American politic body has been sick and heavily conditioned, caught in false dichotomies, and has become dangerous even to itself. The fourth benchmark states that we need to change our myopic views, that is, collectively change our view from the short term to the long term. For far too long, we have been obsessed over quarterly profits that haven't been profitable in the long term, and we have become deaf and blind to the profound Category 5 hurricanes that are definitely headed our way. So what are the current projections according to science? The United Nations estimates that in 2050 1 billion to 200 million people will be migrating due to climate change. The general media and populace thinks that our southern border is becoming untenable. Just wait 25 years. The UN has also estimated that by 2100 6 to 3 billion people will be migrating, as the Earth will be unlivable where they presently reside. The fifth benchmark is, we need to make a collective choice between fascism, dystopian governments, or a viable populist democracy that is more self-aware and educated. We need to create a new story or vision for ourselves, or we will perish. In essence, we need to move to paradigms and ideologies that are functional, sustainable, and adaptable. Politicians should be judged upon this criterion and on the merits of their plan to implement profound societal changes. Also, they should be judged on their plans to split the atom of human potential, as Homo sapiens through both technology and ancient wisdom, as we will be able to soon live 200 to 150 years, cure many pernicious forms of cancer, expand human consciousness, and unravel our intelligence in ways many of us have never dreamed of. The sixth benchmark is that we will face the collective decision. Will we split the atom of human potential or split real atoms over cities? We should be recognizing our common humanity and aiding each other to live their best lives instead of playing a zero-sum game. This century, as stated before, humans will be able to do the following: 1. Live 200 to 150 years. 2. Regrow organs. 3. Engage in reverse aging. 4. Do deep brain stimulation and tap into our brain cells and creative intelligence. 5. Create customized human genomes to some extent. 6. Cure many forms of cancer at the nano level. And 7. Become more compassionate and wise human beings who are able to use these powerful technologies by expanding human consciousness in a systematic manner, both on the individual and collective level. See 100th Monkey Effect. The seventh benchmark, if we are so fortunate to make it as a human race, will be: will we choose people power and begin to resign giving our collective power to dysfunctional governments and corporations, and thereby create a society based upon solving our organic problems and on raising human consciousness as a field? The choice is relatively easy. However, we presently don't even have the vocabulary, syntax, and the general argument frame to make in public or to debate, because we are 1. Egocentric, 2. Ethno/racial centric, 3. Paradigm centric, and time period or era-centric. We only see what is in front of our noses and do not take the long-term view, and we are belaboring with an outdated 20th and 19th century definition of human being, so that whatever we earnestly build now will fail. So what will you do? In conclusion, mankind faces its most crucial time in its 5,500-year history. Our history has been exceptionally cruel, heartbreaking, and arduous, with 4 civilizations arising near the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, the Nile River in Egypt, the Yellow River in China, and the Indus River in India. In essence, we have beleaguered ourselves with various revolutions for the past 170 years, from the Industrial Revolution, the electrical revolution, the revolution in nuclear energy and weapons, the space and aviation revolutions, and now various revolutions in regard to nanotechnology, biotechnology, computers, supercomputers, and now quantum computers. Military technologies such as charged particle beam warfare, which has supposedly replaced nuclear warfare, and now AI, a rather dangerous partner. The one revolution, however, that was a prerequisite to these others and that has been terribly missing is the revolution of the human spirit. Without it, we will not grow as true human beings and consciously evolve quickly enough, and will more than likely become extinct in the ensuing decades. Due to the general media, please read The CIA and the Media by Carl Bernstein, the famous Washington reporter writer during Watergate. We have been literally dumbed down and are in a state of strategic ignorance and manufactured consent. If you were a real American instead of a doppelganger, you would resist these trends and political dichotomies and have a revolution of the human spirit. Why not? Join us at www.revolutionofhumanspirit.com. Make a donation today.